Welcome to the Come Home podcast, the place where we connect with experts, leaders, and advocates who are all on a mission to create an emotionally intelligent world. Here, we dive deep into the realm of human development, sharing insights, experiences, and the incredible work happening in this field. I'm Griffin Gervais, the founder of Come Home, where we partner with industries and organizations to develop their emotional intelligence and cultivate a more emotionally connected world. Through our conversations on this podcast, we seek to inspire, educate, and empower individuals like you to tap into the power of emotional intelligence for personal growth and collective impact. Today, I'm honored to be here with Dr. Angela Bauer. Dr. Bauer is the Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs at High Point University, who is leading the way for HPU to continue to be the premier life skills university by creating an innovative, holistic educational experience for students. Dr. Bauer's background is in psychology and neuroscience from Lawrence University. She has a PhD in neuroscience from Northwestern, and she conducted her postdoctoral studies at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Bauer, welcome to the Come Home podcast.
Thank you very much, Griffin. It's a pleasure to be here.
That was long-winded, I feel like, but I'm really excited to dive in with you. I know when we connected, we talked about just the idea of holistic education, and High Point is very much committed to that, being a premier life skills university. So I'm excited to go there with you. Before we do so, every guest who comes on, I ask them one particular question to start. And our company is called Come Home. And so I want to know, what does come home actually mean to you?
So when you let me know that you were going to spring this question on me, my brain immediately went to my adult children and when they visit me. You know, I've lived in different places, and when they come home to me, it's not their childhood home, physically speaking, but, it's home because it's where their mom lives. Yeah. I want them to feel like they can be 1000% themselves, that they are loved, embraced, celebrated, that they can bring whatever they're carrying with them. And hopefully by the time they leave, their burden's a little bit lighter. I just want them to feel like it's home and they can just be themselves and, completely accepted and loved.
I love that. I love how you use like the physical representation of home, but then also the internal experience of 100% authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe similarly to what you just shared in terms of when we can peel back all the layers, when we can really cultivate this internal knowingness, right, then we get to figure out how we can show the world our authentic selves. And so I love that you created that representation.
Yeah. And I think part of that is, we create it for other people, but we have to feel it for ourselves too, I think, before we can get to that point where we can create it for other people. And so if, in our interactions, whether it's with students or our children, young or adult, or our friends, our family, what have you, if we can help cultivate in them a security and acceptance of themselves as they are, where they are, and just embrace all of it, everything, the wonderful stuff, the imperfections, feeling secure in and of themselves in that manner really helps them to move ahead with, confidence and I think instills in them the ability to share it and pass it on with others.
Yeah. I love what you said, how it has to start with self, right? In order to hold space, in order to be able to allow someone to be in their own process or whatever that has to look like, or cultivate courage or confidence or whatever that is, we have to be able to know that within ourselves, because then we are able to actually hold that. If we don't, then we don't know how to actually interact with those people, right? Yeah. We don't know how to sit and have that conversation. We don't know how to challenge or hold space, or when someone needs a nudge or when someone needs comfort, right? We won't know that unless we know how to do that with ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think of my evolution as a professor and how I used to teach versus how I teach now, and my ability to, I feel, really authentically reach students now. Sure. It is because I'm bringing my whole self to the classroom. Yeah. It used to be that when I first began my teaching career, I I taught in the way that I was taught, which was sort of the standard sage on the stage, lecture style approach to teaching my students.
Sure.
It was how I was taught in my science courses at, many different institutions. And that's just what I knew. And that was the norm. But when I started learning more about the importance of connecting with the affective side of learning and helping students feel, something powerful about what it is that they're learning, whether it's, connecting, maybe we're talking about a particular reproductive technology in class, connecting that with a real life story of a person whose life was significantly impacted by that technology. When students are able to emotionally connect with what it is you're talking about, and you share yourself authentically, the learning becomes so much richer, so much deeper, and they're willing to share, and when you're willing to share, and so my teaching has changed significantly as a result of me being willing to be much more authentically myself in the classroom.
Sure. I can resonate with that 100% with a background in education, teaching inner city New York, and then being a school administrator and here now. I've noticed my evolution as well. From the beginning, it was this idea of like the power, right? I have to hold the classroom together. I have to hold the school together. So what power do I have to hold? But what I realized is there's so much disconnect in that, right? There wasn't this ability to connect. And you're right, where was I able to be vulnerable, be open, kind of allow myself to be seen in order for other people to do the same?
Right.
I learned very quickly in my background as a classroom teacher because we were Title I. We were a Title I school. And so I had no clue what these children's world was like outside of the classroom. I didn't grow up in an environment like that. I wasn't exposed to any of that. And I learned really, really fast, if you can imagine, that I had to connect with them as humans. And if I didn't connect with them as humans, nothing else would happen. Right. It wasn't about the lesson I was teaching. It wasn't about the standards being taught. It wasn't about, are they ready for the next grade? It was, can they be seen, valued, and heard? And that's where that affective side, I had to come in and really go, okay, that will all take care of itself. The instruction, the curriculum, all of that will happen. But how do I actually create a safe, nurturing, and inspiring environment, right? And that only had to do with human to human.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that, given how my education played out, was just me sort of getting over myself. Like it is appropriate and actually a really good thing to be vulnerable in the classroom in an appropriate way.
Sure.
For example, when someone asks a question, to say, I don't know the answer to that, but let's find out. For students to see someone who's, got an advanced degree saying, I don't know, and then modeling what it looks like to find something out or solve a problem, and making themselves vulnerable and showing, I don't know everything. I'll never know everything, and you won't either. And it's okay to ask questions and raise your hand in the middle of class and say, I'm completely lost. That is what creates lifelong learners. That's what engages them in the class and helps them learn the material much more deeply than a very much more superficial approach to learning.
Yeah. How, when you say that, all I think about is curiosity, right? If the teacher or the facilitator or whoever it is can come in with this lens of curiosity, you invite others to this playground of let's explore together. Let's ask those questions. And I think High Point has done a really great job of embodying that in what you guys create externally for people to interact with, as well as what that starts to look like in the classroom. So I know, I'm looking around right now and I'm seeing the premier life skills university.
Right.
So for people listening, what does that actually mean? When someone says that High Point University is the premier life skills school,
what does that mean? Yeah. Life skills we define life skills as those skills that sort of transcend disciplinary boundaries. And now I'm giving a more academic description of it, but a better way to state it is life skills are skills that help you, promote your success regardless of what your profession is in life. Life skills are skills such as being able to speak persuasively about, to provide a rationale for an argument, for example, to be culturally competent, to be able to ethically reason your way through a situation, to be a critical thinker, to really use analytical thinking skills to solve problems, to be creative. Life skills are skills that, yes, we teach them in traditional disciplinary courses, but they sort of transcend all of that. And they're important, essential for success, regardless of what your future profession will be. And that's really critically important for an undergraduate education, because how many times nowadays does the average individual change jobs? I mean, the days are kind of gone. I mean, there are some exceptions. If you go to med school and become a physician, it's probably pretty likely that you will be a physician for the remainder of your life, given the commitment that you put into your education and so forth. But others, are going to transition from one profession to the next. That's sort of the norm now. And so, and also, the future's sort of unpredictable. There's going to be new technology, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing business that we can't even anticipate. So how do we prepare our students to do that? We've got to provide them with the skills that are essential regardless of context. So that in a nutshell is life skills. There are other ways in which we teach life skills. So those are the deeper life skills that are really the academic focus of what we do here. But we also teach other really important but more simplistic life skills. For example, we have on our campus 2 different restaurants where students are able to eat at as a part of their meal plan, where the wait staff is trained to teach them how to eat in a professional setting at a at a steakhouse or what have you, so that when they go on a business interview or when they're interacting with colleagues, they are confident in their ability to navigate multiple utensils and multiple courses of a meal. So there are these other life skills as well, simpler in nature, but yet also important for helping students feel confident in putting their best foot forward in whatever situation that they're in.
Yeah. When you're describing that, I'm such a visual learner. And so every time I'm listening to people and I get to learn from people like yourself, I just create these visuals along with what you're saying. And as you were saying that, all I was thinking about was traditionally the way that school is set up to be. So the whole just construct of school is like all of these arrows going into a person. It's like, we're just going to dump.
Right.
And you're just going to retain whatever it is you retain, or for whatever length of time. I know in my personal experience, I would learn it and then I take the test and then someone asked me about it. I'd be like, I have no idea.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But I think the real difference maker, at least from my perspective in what you just described, was you guys actually kind of had these arrows coming up and out of the human. So instead of dumping in, you guys are committed to pulling out.
That's a beautiful way of describing it. Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Like like the way in you describe that is in like, right. We don't know what professions are going to look like. I mean, now we're in the age where AI is stepping in. So how do we interact with that? What does jobs look like? We don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're doing things from an external perspective, that's not giving a lot of empowerment and opportunity for the human. But in what you're describing is like, but we're actually going to pull it all out of you.
Yes.
So it actually doesn't matter what things look like because you'll have all of the tools, the knowledge, and the experience. And the thing is you can't take that from someone because it's them.
Yeah. So you hit on something that is so critically important for students' success, and that is, self-efficacy, and a strong professional identity or an identity. I say professional identity very generically. If they're, if you're in a situation where you're, in a new position and you're learning a task or, learning how to interact with clients or what have you in a way that you've never done before, and you don't feel confidence in your ability to learn something new, or if you're really resistant to challenges because you feel that if you fail at that challenge, it's sort of a negative commentary on your ability rather than an opportunity to learn something new. It's going to be difficult. It's stressful. I mean, there are so many ways in which, without it coming from within, that's really going to hamper your ability to move forward in whatever path you choose in life. And I mean, we can talk about that from so many different standpoints. Right away, as a biologist, I think about cortisol, the stress hormone cortisol, and how that impacts memory and your ability to learn. I mean, there's a significant impact that stress or insecurity or, lack of confidence has in your ability to take on new challenges and grow as a person. So we're very intent here at High Point University in addressing all of those aspects of learning. In fact, a few years ago, we as a campus adopted as sort of a campus-wide strategic plan to promote student learning, growth mindset strategies in the classroom. And I have to tell you how kind of revolutionary this is from an academic standpoint, because what's unique about our campus is our faculty have grown very comfortable with addressing that affective side of learning. How students feel about their learning is really incredibly important. And yet, as academics, we were all sort of educated to teach and address that cognitive domain of learning,
Absolutely.
And yet we know that if you don't address the affective side, it can seriously hinder what happens in the classroom. And I could talk about a bunch of different studies, and I won't get into the weeds, but interventions that help students feel more confident in their ability to learn can have a greater impact on their ability to learn than other sort of more cognitive-based strategies. So it's really important. So we as a university have developed a comfort level, and in fact, we now celebrate teaching strategies, classroom strategies, particularly those that employ fostering students a growth mindset. We have sort of, it infiltrates everything that we do. And as a result of that, we've been able to document some really significant learning gains on the part of our students, especially in science courses. So we've been very scientific in the way that we've studied this. And we know that if you take really simple steps to instill in students a growth mindset, and I'm sharing this strategy because it's very scalable. So others at other institutions, where there may be larger classes or they're dealing with, much larger cohorts of students, all of this is very scalable. What our faculty did in the sciences is they simply, once a week, shared with students a growth mindset message. And maybe I should step back and just define what it means to have a growth mindset. I got a little ahead of myself, but growth mindset is an idea that was studied extensively, first proposed and studied extensively by Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck. And if you have a growth mindset, what it means is that you understand that you can learn new things. You can, through hard work and using the right strategies, you can become better at something. And that's a very different type of mindset than a fixed mindset. So students or individuals who have a fixed mindset sort of believe that, I was born this way, and therefore, some people are math people and some people are not. And I'm not a math person, so I'm going to not do well in this course. And I'm just going to take the lowest level of math that isn't very challenging just to check off the box and be done with it. Well, you're not growing, as an individual under those circumstances. So fixed mindset people don't like challenges because they feel that if they engage in a problem and they fail or they struggle, that's sort of a very public negative commentary on their intellect or their ability, just sort of confirming that you're not good at this, don't do it. If you have a growth mindset, on the other hand, and you encounter a challenging problem and you don't do so well in trying to solve that problem, you use that as data, as an opportunity to learn, how am I going to go back at this and solve it and become better at what it is that I'm doing? So anyway, that in a nutshell is the definition of a growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So I sort of lost my train of thought, but I think what I was getting to was the scalable solutions. Is that where I was? Okay.
That's where you are.
So
It's all right. I'm with you too. I'm
Okay.
veering off with you.
Okay. So one really scalable approach that we took to instilling in students a growth mindset, which actually caused their academic performance to improve, was a study that we conducted in the natural sciences where faculty presented to students a growth mindset message once a week. It was a very simple approach, can be done in a classroom of any size. Faculty would spend maybe 5 minutes on a Monday or a Tuesday in lecture at the start of the week and share a simple growth mindset message. So maybe it was about, the resilience that someone like Michael Jordan experienced. So if you'll recall, Michael Jordan didn't make the high school basketball team or was cut from the high school basketball team and then ended up being, one could argue, the greatest basketball player of all times. Sharing a story with them about when you encounter challenge or failure, the importance of sticking with it and retooling and strategizing and keeping at it so that you can grow as a person with respect to whatever that skill is. So they would present to them a simple growth mindset message once a week and then reiterate that message as problems arose during the week or maybe right before an exam, encouraging students, to rise to the challenge and learn from mistakes, et cetera. We found that when faculty used this very scalable approach to teaching students growth mindset ideas, that academic performance improved. It was combined with some other best practices in the classroom, active learning strategies. But when we put the two together, growth mindset interventions with active learning strategies, academic performance went up. And not only that, we found that growth mindset messaging was a really critically important tool for addressing longstanding performance gaps that often exist in STEM classrooms between majority students and students from underrepresented groups. So we were able to, in some cases, completely close those performance gaps. So it's a powerful approach. Everyone benefits from it. And, in the end, it's a simple approach that can be employed in classes of any size.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you also gave the audience an example of like what that looks like. Cause I think a lot of times when we talk about the affective, when I talk with companies about emotional intelligence, it's like, we understand it, but how do we get it to actually live and breathe? So I'd be curious to know from you a little bit more on what actually goes on that makes it living and breathing here. And I would love to know the impact. I know you were talking about the impact a little bit. I'd love to know the impact it had on students as well as faculty, because I think too, the role of faculty plays a big part. So I'm gonna leave those two questions and then
So how did we, as a campus, get everyone to buy in? Essentially, is okay.
Yeah.
So we, when we were choosing, the next focus for a project, which is called a quality enhancement plan, which is required of our accrediting body. But every several years, a campus has to choose a project, sort of campus-wide that everyone will engage in, faculty and staff, that promotes student learning in some way. And before we even chose growth mindset strategies as our focus, we were looking at, we did surveys of faculty, alumni. I believe we surveyed alumni. I'm trying to remember all the constituencies that we gathered data from. But the point is, there were some common themes that kept occurring. One of which was really wanting to teach students the importance of challenge and failure and embracing failure and learning from it in a really positive and beneficial way. And as these themes kept coming out, my working group, like, this is all about growth mindset.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it more broadly as a faculty. We presented a few ideas for our QEP to the faculty. And in the end, everyone voted for growth mindset strategies as being the focus of our QEP. So it was sort of more of like an organic development of an idea that addressed challenges that so many faculty could see were affecting our students in the classroom. And so, we then funded ideas, ways, testing out innovative ways to foster in students a growth mindset in the classroom or even in student life. What does that look like when you're having a roommate problem? How would a person with a growth mindset approach this opportunity to enhance their relationship or their communication skills or their ability to resolve conflict? It sort of permeated campus culture, and we made sure that there was funding available for people who were engaging in these projects so that we could generate as much momentum as we could. And in the end, it was really wonderful. And I would argue you can pretty much ask anyone on this campus now about, hey, what do you think about growth mindset, or how are you implementing these ideas in their classroom? And they'll tell you about it. There's Dr. Miguel Sagoon in our business school, Phillips School of Business, does this great thing in his class where he builds in cushion. I'm talking very generally about this. He builds in cushion essentially within his syllabus for failure. Like he encourages students, take on something that's going to be really hard and you're probably not going to be great at it, and he builds in an opportunity within his point system or his grading system for them to have a couple of clunkers for sure, so that they're engaging in things that help them grow. So anyway,
I think, well, sorry, I didn't mean to pause you there, because there's two things that I think are really important to acknowledge in this, in what you said. The first is, I think a lot of what you're talking about in terms of buying in or really transforming culture is you actually listened to the people, right? I think a lot of times in organizations, at least from my perspective, is it's a lot of, well, what do we have to build, right? How do we get ahead of the people to build for them?
Right.
And all this time, energy, and effort goes into building. And while I understand that notion, a lot of times it's missed because they're not actually seeing, valuing, and hearing the people.
Right.
And so that really stuck out to me, because it wasn't like, well, as a premier life skills university, what's that thing that we do that we just tell everyone we're doing?
Yeah.
You guys actually took the time to go, wait a second. We have to listen to what they're saying. There's and then there's no reason for buy-in not to exist,
right?
Because they're being listened to.
Yeah, I have another example of that actually, because as this kind of loops back to our discussion of life skills. So we've been teaching life skills on our campus for quite some time, but we've really sort of hit the sweet spot now in terms of doing it really effectively and ensuring that every student is taught some very specific life skills, but by the time that they graduate. So, and I'm talking about our liberal arts core, so otherwise known as the general education core that students take. And we, have at our roots, we are a liberal arts campus. Our undergraduate students have a liberal arts curriculum where they're exposed to a variety of different disciplines, a variety of disciplinary ways of knowing, of seeing the world, through taking humanities courses, arts courses, natural sciences courses, etc. And that broad exposure to these different disciplines, again, that's, sort of the traditional liberal arts approach. But we wanted to also take those classes and teach life skills within that context, because then we knew if we were also not only teaching life skills within their major, but teaching these very specific life skills in their liberal arts core, we knew then every student would get exposed and learn those life skills by the time that they graduate. This was a faculty effort, back to, this sort of collective discussion, debate, selection of specific life skills that our faculty felt strongly our students should learn by the time that they graduate, and then developing a model for our liberal arts core in which those life skills would be taught. Again, that was faculty led. It was a couple of years of forums and surveys and feedback and tweaking of a model, and in the end we adopted a model. It was developed by Dr. Robert Moses, one of our religion professors, who again, develop this core that has a lot of strong traditional liberal arts components, but at the same time teaches life skills to students in a very specific manner. And, as a result of that now, again, it was sort of something that arose and was collectively decided that this was a good way to move. I don't want to create this picture that 100% of faculty are behind this. It's, nothing is ever that way. But nonetheless, we have significant backing for the way that we now teach our core. So all students are getting exposure to, opportunities to learn these life skills by the time that they graduate. And we're starting to generate data about what that looks like. And, some of the life skills that have been identified, again, go back to having a growth mindset, emotional intelligence, being a great team player, being coachable, all of those things that are more related to, the emotional components of learning. We're embracing them. They're part of our list of life skills that we're teaching students. And so, in the end, everybody wins. And there's one other aspect to this core that was developed by our faculty that we haven't quite gotten to, but there have been a couple of opportunities in this conversation where I wanted to bring it up. It has to do with experiential learning. And so we are firm believers in the impact of experiential learning for our students. So experiential learning means that our students are provided with opportunities to take what they've learned in the classroom, theory, ideas, applications that they've learned about in their head in the classroom, and actually apply them in a real world context. Yeah. And we've always done a lot of it on our campus, but we now have, again, it's part of our Gen Ed core. Now, we won't let any student escape our campus and graduate with a High Point University degree unless they've engaged in experiential learning. It's part of our core now. And, back to, feeling confident,
Sure.
In your ability to be a professional, to contribute to the community, to contribute to our body of knowledge through scientific research. Students have to actually have the opportunity to be in that position where, oh my gosh, now I've got to take the initiative and make decisions and respond to feedback if, the way I executed wasn't quite up to snuff. And there's nothing like that. I'm sure you can hearken back to the first time you were in front of a class. I can certainly remember it was like, they're really trusting me to do this. It was nerve wracking. But there's something about getting those experiences under your belt where you're like, oh, I can do this. And then you become, more calm and confident about your ability to execute and to apply everything that you've learned in the classroom. So what better way, to prepare our students internally in terms of their self-confidence, their professional identity, their self-efficacy than to conduct undergraduate research or engage in an internship or do a service learning project. I mean, the opportunities are endless on this campus. And so that's something that we've adopted as well within our liberal arts core. Also, that was, again, something that arose, an idea that arose from within the faculty that they felt strongly enough. Everyone voted to include it as part of our liberal arts core. So,
and in being an alumni of High Point University, that was something that really stuck out in my experience. I wasn't as aware of it in maybe the moment because I was in it.
Right.
But when I started teaching with people who came from various backgrounds, universities, and even in my educational leadership program as well, I was really proud of the experience that I had from day one of being actually in practice of these things.
Right.
Because I would talk to people and they would be talking about, senior year or junior year, finally getting to step in.
Right.
And I look at that and I go, wow, I had 2 more years of learning. And, everything, the other piece I was going to say to kind of tack on to what you're sharing is we also need to continuously remember that everything that you're talking about, whether it's that professor who builds in failure into his syllabus, as well as these experiential learning things, being able to
It's a hard word. I get it.
Self-efficacy, whatever. And all these pieces are they're skills.
Yeah.
So you can develop them. People
Yes,
think I don't have
absolutely. Yeah.
confidence.
Right. Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
not a
have-
confident person. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not this outgoing person. I don't know how to take initiative, like all these
Yeah.
different things. And what we get to understand and realize is you can actually cultivate those skills.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think you also, in describing all of those things, answered that question I was asking you of like, how does it actually come to life here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times when we talk about these emotional intelligence skills or these life skills, we think about them isolated. So it's like,
Yes.
well, what class do I take, right?
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
no.
Yeah.
It's not the class. It's not, it's not the certain program that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
We actually infuse it. It's the foundation of everything that we do.
Right.
And I think that's a big piece to touch on for people listening is this idea that these life skills don't replace anything.
Right.
They're not separate. They actually all coexist, and it just becomes the foundation of everything you
Yes.
build off of.
Yeah. And that is a really great point because it does address a tension that exists among faculty on liberal arts campuses. Some who really espouse the traditional view of the purpose of a liberal arts education. It is to, expose students to different disciplinary ways of knowing and fostering them a lifelong love of learning. And some are actually pretty staunchly opposed to tying it to any professional outcomes because they feel it detracts from all of the above that I just stated. So there's that. And then there's faculty who, have seen now on our campus, are seeing now that you can teach all the good stuff of these traditional liberal arts courses. And at the same time, maybe in a history class, students are working on a group project and you're really intentionally teaching and structuring and providing feedback on teamwork. You're teaching an incredibly valuable life skill also within the context of this traditional humanities course. So you're getting the best of both worlds. And so that tension does exist. And actually, I'm working on a book about this tension right now. About teaching life skills within the liberal arts. And there's another book that's underway among our faculty that is in a volume of chapters dedicated to very practical wisdom about how to teach life skills in these courses, to how to teach life skills in a way that transcends disciplinary boundaries. So there's a lot of really good work happening on our campus. And it's interesting that when people visit our campus, and in fact, a lot of the stuff that's written about our campus really focuses on the physical beauty of our campus because it's a gorgeous campus. It's unlike any other. And it's easy to kind of get swept away with that and be so enamored with that you miss the heart of what we're really all about and the really good stuff that's happening academically on our campus. And so it's great to have this interview actually to talk about life skills and experiential learning and growth mindedness because our faculty are really unique in that respect that they've embraced this very holistic approach to educating our students in a way that, as Dr. Cobain often says, we want to prepare our students for the world as it's going to be. And what he means by that, not for the world as it is, but how it's going to be. And what he means by that is, we can, any campus can prepare students for things that we know will be a part of their professional life, at least immediately upon graduation, whether it's programming in a certain language or knowing a particular laboratory technique for sequencing DNA. We can, many campuses do that. But what we're doing is preparing our students beyond that for the unpredictability that lies within the future. Who knows what, let's talk about ChatGPT. Like I'll speak for myself.
Sure.
Who would have thought we'd see the day? And yet here we are, and we've got to respond to it and adapt to it and help students to use it as a tool, but yet not rely on it as a crutch and still develop their writing skills and critical thinking skills and so forth. my point is that there's an unpredictability to the future, and our students have to be comfortable with uncertainty. And the way that they can do that is through employing those life skills, feeling confident, having a growth mindset, being resilient, having those experiential learning opportunities under their belt where they've developed all of the above. So anyway, long-winded way to say what our faculty do here at High Point University is pretty unique, pretty incredible, and our students are amazing as a result.
Yeah, I appreciate you peeling those layers back, because I know we've even touched base off of this conversation about some of these topics, and people see the campus and they see all of the stuff going on, and everyone's like, wow, it's amazing, and everything. They don't know the behind the scenes to all of that, right? How does all of this stuff, right? How do those words on the wall right now actually come to life? And there's steps and there's strategy and there's skills that actually bring that to life. And so I'm glad and I'm grateful that you took some time to peel those layers back. I wanted to ask you, and I feel like this goes a little bit in what you just said, something that really stuck out to me, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, is, you know, when you and I first connected, we were talking about this idea of college, right? Like in our world nowadays, kids don't need to necessarily go to school. Right. And I was really, like, it inspired me to, from you sharing with me, we're asking ourselves the question of why would students want to go to school? Right. And when I heard you say that, it really landed with me, because from my perspective, I'm going, wow, they're very invested in humans, right? It's not about what you do in these 4 years here. It's about how can we develop you as a human? Right. Yeah. Understanding that our world is going to start to shift and look a lot different. Yeah. So right. If you were to talk with a family, if you were to talk to a student, you know, why would they come to High Point University? Right. So High Point University specifically, or why would they go to college at all? Because I think I'll let you interpret that how you want. Okay, I can actually talk about both. I want to talk about both. Okay. So I'm going to bring up this conversation that I had with a stranger. Those are the best. It was the most amazing sort of serendipitous conversation that really made me think a lot about the value of higher ed. And so it was a Saturday. I'd gone for a hike. I think it was at Hanging Rock in North Carolina, and then met a friend at a microbrewery and had a beer. And she's an academic. She's at Wake Forest University. And we were talking about higher ed and, you know, the state of higher ed. And people are questioning the value of a college degree now more than ever. And, you know, obviously we both feel very strongly about the impact that a 4-year undergraduate degree can have on one's development, not only as a professional, but just as an individual and an engaged citizen, everything. Okay. And this guy was sitting next to us eavesdropping, and he interrupted us and he said, you know, I chose not to go to college. I think I was able to learn everything I need to know to be successful in my field on the job. And, you know, and so the conversation unfolded, and it was great because he got a lot of really great mentorship on his job. And he learned a lot of life skills from this person. And yeah, people can learn a lot and be mentored by really wonderful people in a professional setting and grow as individuals in all the way that I've described. But what's the likelihood that, you know, you're going to get yourself in a position professionally in a context where you will get that level of mentorship, or someone invests in you who's specifically tuned into all these incredibly important life skills that will serve you well, not only in that position, but beyond. And I'm not talking about like technical and scientific skills, because obviously you need a degree to be successful in that regard. You need the coursework to study and be successful in that regard. But I'm talking about life skills. There's nothing like
in undergraduate education, and I would argue specifically at High Point University, where you can have 4 years within this sort of accelerator or incubator where you've got mentors who are here because they love what they do. They believe in the importance of your growth holistically,
Mm.
and they're tuned into these very specific life skills and how to teach them to you very intentionally throughout your 4 years. So it's like this super concentrated, full on
Yeah.
accelerator program for
Sure.
you to develop holistically as an individual in ways that I would argue are just, it's kind of hard to beat that.
Yeah.
And it's worth the value.
Yeah.
And does every campus do that? No, I think a lot of times some student, for example, will end up at a flagship
Mm.
where they're in courses with hundreds of students at a time and really no one-on-one faculty connection beyond very superficial interactions. And they can learn great things and learn content from the
Sure.
experts, internationally recognized experts. They can learn
Yeah.
content, but are they learning all this other incredibly important stuff that helps them develop
Yeah.
holistically as an individual, feel confident in who they are? I would argue there's no beating that a High Point University education.
Yeah. I think too, even, and I know I shared this with you before, but I think when you come from that perspective, or when you're an institution that embodies something like that, you actually break the barrier of the isolated timeline of
Mhm.
just like your life and your evolution, right?
Mhm.
Because I think what happens is people go, I'm going to school.
Yeah.
I have 4 years in school.
Mhm.
What can I learn? And then I hit the world and I get punched in the face,
Yes,
right?
right.
Metaphorically.
Uh-huh.
And here, I feel like you actually streamline all of it.
Hmm.
There's no walls, there's no isolation, because it's rooted in holistic education.
Right.
It's rooted in human development. It's rooted in experiential learning.
Uh-huh.
It's rooted in relationship and connection.
Right.
And so you actually kind of transcend the 4 years,
Yeah.
because now you have all these things, going back to what we originally were talking about. You've cultivated this, and you're now creating an external surrounding that matches it.
Right. As you were saying all of that, which I agree wholeheartedly with, I was thinking about how now more than ever, these human connections, this holistic approach to developing people as humans, to mentorship, to like now more than ever, our students need that. The impact of the pandemic in terms of disconnection, lack of social engagement, remote learning, it has impacted our students significantly. And it seems like every week we're reading a new statistic or a new study about the ways in which students, as a result of that experience, as a result of them at a pivotal time in their emotional development, their academic development, they really were stunted. They were isolated. They couldn't have the social and emotional connections that we know are important for learning during that particular phase of life. They didn't have that. So we're finding, and this is true of institutions of higher ed across the nation, that this cohort of students who was exposed to maybe 1 or 2 years of remote learning or not being able to fully engage socially, that they're not as engaged. They're much more hesitant to engage socially. They're more hesitant to engage in the classroom. And all of that is being addressed by our wonderful faculty who are coming up with amazing ways to help students get back into the groove and really connect. But my point is, now more than ever, we need that human connection. We need this sense of community, and we need experts at the front of the classroom or in the midst of the classroom who know how to facilitate all of that. So it needs to be sort of a full-on, full-throttle effort on the part of the academic community, because our students suffered. It's in so many ways, and it's so unfortunate. We need to really step up in a way that, again, reconnects them and helps them continue on their path.
Yeah. I feel like in the conversation of humans and all this, you and I could go on forever because it's so complex. There's so many layers and avenues to it, but I really appreciate you peeling the layer back a little bit to talk about what those words mean, being a premier life skills university are, and how that's starting to really solidify who you guys are. Because like I was saying to you on the way over, I don't know any other school that names themselves the Premier Life Skills University. And so I know that separates you guys from all the others. And I just want to acknowledge the work you're doing, acknowledge the work your staff's doing, Dr. Quabane's doing, because in my opinion, you are building a lifelong learner when they come here. So thank you for that. I want to ask you one question before we wrap. And it's personal for you.
Okay.
So one question I always ask people before we end is, if you could be known for one word, what would it be?
One word. Oh my goodness. This is where you're going to have to edit a long pause. Has to be one word. A catalyst. Catalyst. But I'm only limited to one word, so can I explain?
Go for it.
I viewed my role in the classroom when I was actively teaching as a faculty member as a catalyst for students' development, not only intellectually, but emotionally. A catalyst for their connection, a catalyst for them to connect with resources and support on campus that would help them develop to their fullest potential. And now I have a leadership position that allows me to do that on a different sort of level. Now it's a sort of a broader approach to how do we develop a curriculum that's a catalyst for students to achieve all of the above, or campus environment or classroom instruction that serves as a catalyst. I know that there were key people in my life that were catalysts for me, and I'm so grateful that I learned from them, and my learning took on an entirely new meaning. My self-confidence skyrocketed with being mentored by those people who served as a catalyst in my life. So when all is said and done, I hope I work hard every day to be that sort of catalyst for our students as well.
Appreciate you sharing that. And even just in the short time I've gotten to know you and spend time with you, I feel like you're a great embodiment of that word.
Oh, thank you, Griffin.
So
thank you.
If people are interested to know more about High Point University, the work you're doing, all the things around the Premier Life Skills University, what's the best way for them to find all that?
Well, a lot of it can be found on our website. We also, related to our growth mindset approaches, are very structured studies of the impact of growth mindset strategies on student success. We have some academic publications. Wondering if we could put them in your show notes for this podcast, and people can access them there. Stay tuned for more information on our book about teaching life skills within the liberal arts, which we'll talk broadly about the impact of teaching students life skills within a traditional liberal arts curriculum, but we'll also focus heavily on some of these life skills that are more related to the social emotional components of learning. So
awesome. Dr. Bauer, thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much, Griffin. It's been a pleasure.